first started my research in second language acquisition, but I started that from the perspective of a linguist. I was enrolled in a PhD program in linguistics. I was looking at just another linguistic system with the goal of determining how that linguistic system might have differed or did not differ from systems of what people call natural languages. But I recognized that linguists then did not have the same recognition, even though I saw the language of second language learners, which we called interlanguage, as a language in its own right. Linguists didn't see that. And many associated the work that I was doing and others were doing in second language acquisition as applied linguistics. But then as I began to be labeled as an applied linguist, I thought, oh yeah, this is nice. And I happily found myself identifying with work of other applied linguists, and my professional association was much more closely aligned with like AAAL, for example, and TESOL than it was with the Linguistic Society of America. My own definition of what applied linguistics is very similar to what the definition of that one can see on the ILA website or on AAAL, where there's an emphasis on real life practical issues with the goal of bettering the lives of individuals. But I was taken aback a little bit by the statement from the ILA website, where it talks about problems that can be identified and analyzed or solved by applying available theories, methods, and results of linguistics. I find this somewhat, as I say, almost objectionable, because it does place too much emphasis on linguistics as the source field. There's so much more emphasis on other areas of research, psycholinguistics, sociolinguistics, and many of the elicitation methods that we use in second language acquisition these days have been developed by SLA researchers and are not taken from other fields. In 2002, I was elected president of ILA and was president for 2 terms until 2008. And then I was past president until 2011. So from 2002 to 2011, I was very involved in the organization. I was the first woman to hold this office in the history of the organization. And I want to give a big shout out to those individuals on the executive committee in those days when I was president, because one of the most important innovations that we did and the executive committee did was the development of the research networks, which we called RENs. And here I really want to give a very big shout out to Meryl Swain, who led the brigade on this one. Developing this concept of research networks was our way of connecting people and having continuity of research from many different parts of the world. Okay, so when I started, we had the first meeting that I chaired was in, must have been 2003, early 2000s. As I mentioned, I was the first woman to serve as president and also the first North American. And of course, I came at the whole experience only knowing about how to conduct meetings based on my own administrative experiences in the US. But I do remember reading something in the ILA bylaws about the meetings that needed to be conducted using Robert's Rules of Order. Now, I have to say, I'm not a big follower of Robert's Rules. I don't know Robert's Rules from beginning to end. But during the meetings, I did follow some of the basics. I asked for motions and for people to call the question when we were voting on something. But after a long, very long day of meetings, which I thought it was a fairly successful meeting, a woman in the back of the room was quite annoyed with me and stood up and started asking me why I use terms like motions and call the questions. I mean, she had no idea what this meant. And I just must have sure turned 5 shades of red because I was so embarrassed and felt that I had brought some arrogant US way of conducting meetings into this new context. A very embarrassing experience. One of the issues that we were very concerned about was the paucity of participants and representatives from many countries of the world, countries that where it was even hard for them to pay the ILA dues. And this was of a concern to us because we didn't want them not to participate. I think that the executive board that I was involved with made great strides in putting these awards together with many of the executive board members giving their own personal donations for these awards. And looking now at the website for Lyon, there were just so many awards given. It's wonderful that the funds are there for this to happen. I think when I first became involved in ILA, I saw ILA as incorporating everything, and almost too much. It included papers on first language acquisition, on everything related to applied linguistics. It ended up being more than I thought was relevant. But now when I see applied linguistics, and ILA as representative of this as a place where we can deal with the problems that the world faces. And I think we're now in a place in the world where diversity is splitting us apart. Because applied linguistics has as its emphasis solving real world problems, looking at individuals as they live in this world, in society, we have a place in changing the world song, if you will, and showing that diversity, which is not going to disappear, can shape the future in a positive way.